I wanted to start with uh, a story of my own learning journey because the Kalam 3.0 Institute is a result of about 25 years of study and working in the field. And I want to describe the journey that I took um, because I think that some of you might find that certain steps of the journey they resonate with you, that you have the same experiences. So, um, ever since I was a teenager, I wanted to defend Islam from intellectual attacks by everyone, really. So when I went to high school, it was being a religious Muslim in high school. It is the everyone around you, all of the teachers, the universities that they've graduated from, intelligence and open-mindedness and rational arguments and science and logic and mathematics, everything is dominated by people who aren't Muslim. And when people like me and like you, when we enter into these academic fields, or even if we're just watching from a distance, then we are viewed in a particular way. We're not viewed as intellectuals. We're not viewed as people who have a deep understanding of any of these things. We're viewed as religious people who pray to God. They believe in these things. Maybe they're good people, they're moral people, or maybe like if they follow the news, maybe they think that we're not good or moral people. But there's not a general admiration for the from an intellectual perspective. So ever since I was a teenager, this was something that I it bothered me, and I wanted to do something about it. So I finished high school and I started studying the Islamic sciences while I was still a teenager. I used to go in the summers to the Middle East to study. I had a teacher in Canada as well. And I completed my high school. I went to university, and I did a degree in science. Um, but as I was doing that, I also studied some philosophy because who are the intelligent people? The intelligent people in the minds of the average person are the famous Western philosophers on whose shoulders modern Western civilization was founded. So I took a philosophy course at university, and we learned about Hobbes and Hume and Descartes and Kant and Berkeley, and all of these philosophers. I read them. I had a professor. I wrote my essays. I tried to compare what they were saying to what the Muslim scholars said. I'd read a little bit of Kalam and tried to find answers to to Hume in the works of the mutakallimūn. And I found what people were doing were one of three things. They were either finding similarities. So they were saying, well, Hume rejects causation, so does Ghazali. Or they were saying that Descartes' period of doubt, it's taken from Ghazali's uh, al-Munqidh min al-Dalal, when he fell into, a period of self-doubt. So there were similarities. People were mentioning similarities between these Western philosophers and between something that Ghazali had said or somebody else had said. But they weren't solving problems. They weren't giving clarity. They weren't putting what these philosophers were saying into a coherent Islamic worldview. I read, I was on the internet, I looked at what Christians were saying, and there was internal contradictions. So the most I found was that this philosopher, he contradicts himself here, he's not right here. Um, and as I investigated the path of philosophy for a while. I worked actually with some professional philosophers as well. But I came to the realization very quickly that if I were to pursue a degree in philosophy and become a philosopher, then the most that would happen would be that I would know a lot about a particular issue that Kant wrote about. I'd write an academic paper, it would be published, I'd get together with people, they would critique me, they would say, okay, fine, this is good, but nothing would change. Nothing would change. Everybody would still go on, and the level at which the philosophers speak, it seemed that you could never overcome them. And if you've done a little bit of philosophy, you'll see that. If you go do a degree in philosophy and you enter into a Western philosophy department, you're not going to show the truth of Islam and why all the philosophers who are non-Muslim are wrong. You're never going to be able to do that. Um, and and that's what I wanted to do. So I had this I had this experience which was like in the back of my mind. I studied Kalam among the other Islamic sciences. I studied Kalam. When I studied Kalam, maybe some of you have studied Kalam before. I'll tell you what I thought that these were really intelligent people. I always loved Imam al-Ghazāli. I thought he was really intelligent. He was amazing. Every single book that he wrote, I wanted to read. Um, but when I studied Kalam, I thought it was really good. It gave a lot of clarity, but they had arguments for the existence of God. And these arguments for the existence of God were based on an analysis of the universe in terms of bodies and accidents and a'rad and ajram. And and what I was used to looking at the world in terms of atoms and molecules. It was the first time I'd heard about bodies and accidents, and nobody was talking about them. And even the Western philosophers didn't talk about these things. It was a long time ago. Greek philosophy, Aristotle, Christian philosophers, Aquinas. You had to go back a long time before the modern world to find people who looked at the universe this way. And when they analyzed the universe, what did they say? So if you read the books of Kalam, they'll tell you that this thing here, it has color, and color inheres in it. Color is an attribute of this. But that's not what we believe anymore. If you, I did my high school science classes. In my high school science classes, there's no such, everybody learns there's no such thing as color that inheres in my shirt. But rather what happens is that light from the sun or wherever it comes and it strikes this material, and it's that light is composed of many different colors, and some of those colors are absorbed and others are reflected. And depending on which ones are reflected, that's the color that you see. Everybody, this is what they how they analyze color. But when the mutakallimūn were breaking up the world into its constituent parts, they were analyzing it, they were looking at color very differently. So this kind of stood out to me. I didn't know what to make of it. I was just learning. The argument for the existence of God and the beginningless of the universe and mulazimul hadith, I thought it was quite good, but honestly speaking, even though I understood it, I read the shuruh, I read the hawashi, I imagined myself in my class with my non-Muslim friend telling them that this is why you should believe in God, and I didn't think that they would be convinced. And I read William Lane Craig, his Kalam cosmological argument, and the way that he was describing it was very different from the way the mutakallimūn described it. So he was using set theory and infinity, and he was talking about time and A theory of time and B theory of time, and he was doing something that was different, but it was still related to it. And I couldn't make sense of it. Like, how do I fit everything together? But I kept it in my mind. And that was my first experience studying Kalam. What I did then was I studied all of the Islamic sciences. After I finished university, I went and I studied with scholars in Kuwait, in the UAE, in Jordan, and I studied all the Islamic sciences. I studied not just Kalam and logic, but I studied usul, I studied hadith, I studied actual hadith. memorized asanid. I studied the Quran. I'd already memorized the Quran. I studied tafsir, I studied balagha. I memorized Arabic poetry. I learned the Arabic meter. I learned the science of fiqh. I learned the science of usul. I learned how to extract rulings. I learned about the khilaf between the madhahib. I had a traditional education. I learned all of the sciences, alhamdulillah. But the reason why I'm telling you this is because what I came to the realization around this time that Kalam on its own is not enough. Um, you need a lot more than Kalam. You need the other Islamic sciences because unless you have the other Islamic sciences, you can't do Kalam properly. So I studied the Islamic sciences, and then I went and I worked for 3 years. Um, on a project that was funded by the Templeton Foundation. The Templeton Foundation, now lots of Muslims work with them. At that time, we were one of the first organizations. And I was the manager of the project, and there were philosophers, there were scientists, there were theologians, and I was in charge. And I was the research manager, research program manager. So I organized conferences, publications, but among the things that I did was, apart from benefiting from meeting and everything, I actually tried out the arguments. I took the Kalam arguments and I spoke to professional philosophers. I took them out for coffee. I said, "This is what we say. What do you say? And how would you respond to this? And what would you say to this?" And at one stage, for a couple of months, I had a team of professional philosophers working with me. I took the Kalam arguments, like the Burhan ut-Tamanu, argument for divine oneness. And I had that team of professional philosophers scour the Western philosophical tradition um, for any arguments that were similar to this, and arguments for the existence of God, and arguments for tawatur, and it was so that we were working on a Kalam glossary. It never actually saw the light of day, but as we were working on it, because of these conversations, I was able to understand how Kalam related to modern philosophy and how it related to modern science. My own science education helped me with that as well because when I went to university, I did math, I did calculus, I did set theory, I did physics. So when scientists were speaking these things, I understood what they were saying. So I was all excited. I was going to write a big complicated book, and my teacher told me that I was wasting my time. And what I needed to do was I needed to help the average Muslim on the street and not talk in really complicated language. So I resigned and I started Basira. And the first course that I designed was called Why Islam is True. And all of you are familiar with Why Islam is True. And Why Islam is True, when I taught it, it's at the level of a 15-year-old, which is the same as the level of an adult, average educated person. And alhamdulillah, it worked. And what does it mean it worked? It means that there has never been a question about the truth of Islam that hasn't been answered. We've trained hundreds of teachers. They've taught their students. They've never been stuck. And these arguments, they work. So what is Why Islam is True? Why Islam is True, all of you know it, but basically it's Kalam, but it's all of the bodies and accidents is taken out, atoms and molecules are put in, and the issues that people face today, we apply Kalam to solve those issues, but it doesn't look like Kalam. It actually reads like a normal textbook, and it's normal English language. But it comes from Kalam. It's based on Kalam. So over the last couple of years, as I've been training teachers, I've had conversations with teachers. I've worked with students who have PhDs in mathematics and philosophy. They've had objections. I've been answering them. I've been using the Kalam works to do that. And I've been working on a number of books which are coming out very soon, inshallah. And what's so basically what I've gained over these last 2 decades is I have, because of my experience, I've been able to take the Kalam tradition and the Islamic sciences and apply them to show the truth of Islam in the world today. And and it's not just kalam, right? So when you do evolution, you need to understand usul. You have to understand scriptural interpretation. You need to understand tafsir. When you do the Quran and science, then you need to understand balagha. When you talk about the miracle of the Quran, you need to understand balagha. When you talk about why the Prophet is God's messenger, you need the science of hadith. So the books of Kalam, they don't talk about tawatur or isnad or proofs of the Prophet in detail. They're found in books of Dala'ilun Nubuwa and they're found in books of Usul. And a lot of those things have been brought in. So you need in order to show the truth of Islam, you have to have a broad education. Kalam is an important part of it, but you need to bring it all together. And so uh, so what I've been so what I'm there's two books that are coming out soon. One is called Discerning Religious Truth. This will be out in a couple of weeks, inshallah. It is Sa'ad ad-Din al-Taftāzānī's Tahdhīb al-Mantiq, which is an advanced book in Kalam with its commentary and with its hawashi. It's about 300 pages, all in the English language, but in a way that can be read by the average reader, and it's in the language of modern philosophy and modern analytic philosophy. So it connects all of the discussions to modern philosophical discussions in epistemology. And there's another book, Kalam 3.0, which I've shared with many of you, which will be coming out very soon, inshallah. So what I I've what I would like to do is I would like to move on to the next stage of the Why Islam is True project, which is teaching advanced students, people who are already students of knowledge, people who've studied the Kalam tradition, people who are ulama, teaching them how to use the works of our scholars to come to the conclusions that we find in Why Islam is True. And that involves teaching mantiq and kalam and falsafa and bringing it back into our seminary education. And so I wanted to describe what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And the goal of this is for the study of logic to be revived, for the study of kalam to be revived, for the study of falsafa to be revived in our curricula, but revived in a way that's connected to the world. Because you can find people. They know Tahdhīb al-Mantiq wal-Kalam, they've taught it 50 times. But they don't speak English, they don't understand math, they don't understand science, they don't understand modern atheism. They will not be able to take what they're doing and connect it to the discussions in the world today. So what I want to teach is I want to teach how to do that. And I want to start from step one. They do very complicated things. They'll read Sharh al-Aqaid. Sharh al-Aqaid is a complicated book. And I want to read Sharh al-Aqaid. But we have to go there when we have all of the preparatory elements in place. So so what so here's the high level plan of what I would like to do. So this is all something that I would like to do. But whether I do it or not depends on whether you guys are interested. So I'm looking for about 50 students to join. So if I get commitment from 15 students, then I will proceed. If I don't, then I'll delay it until there is interest. So if you guys are interested, then please please register, and I can see whether or not this is something that I'll be doing. So it's a 3-year program. It's a 3-year program, and it's a live class, twice a week for 2 hours. So 4 hours a week. 4 hours a week of live class online. Recordings are available, so you can follow. You don't have to attend live, but you can. And if you don't attend live, you can follow along in the recordings and ask your questions either on a forum or in a group. I haven't figured out how to do it, but there'll be an efficient way for you to ask your questions and be in touch with me. So my goal is I want to I want to teach people who are going to teach this to other people. And that's what I want to do, because this has to be revived. This tradition of ours has to be revived, and it was alive in the time of Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanvi. He was a great mutakallim. It was alive in the time of Anwar Shah Kashmiri. He was a great mutakallim. It was alive. These people, they did these things. They spoke about it. They solved these issues. This is how they thought. But then in over a generation or two, suddenly it became lost. So I wanted to bring it back. So I'm looking for 50 students, and I'm looking for people who are interested in learning so that they can teach other people. And I'll be personally involved in your education. And I'll be making sure that you are able to teach it. So it is it is it is it's something that I'm interested in doing. And so if you guys are interested, then I hope that you can join. But it's a 3-year program, and the 3-year program, this is how it goes. So the first year, which I would like to start next year, is about taking Kalam and connecting it to the modern world and understanding how to do that. So there's this idea of Kalam 3.0, and Kalam 3.0, sometimes people ask, they say, like, why 3? Why not 2? Why are you calling it 3.0 and not 2.0? And the reason is because Kalam 1.0 is the Kalam with the Mu'tazila, and this is called Kalam al-Mutaqaddimin. Taftāzānī said this. And then he said that there's Kalam al-Mutaakhirin, and the books of Kalam that we have now are Kalam al-Mutaakhirin, and it's the mutakallimūn speaking to the falasifa. But the mutakallimūn, as they're speaking to the falasifa no longer exist. And so we need to take that Kalam 2.0 and redirect it to the modern world. And that's what we'll be learned to do in the first year. So in the first year, we'll start with logic. We're going to start with the Isagoji by Asiruddin al-Abhari. We're going to do just the matan. I'll explain it, inshallah. There'll be some snippets from the shuruh, but it'll be explanation of the matan and the key terminology with application. And we start with logic. You have to start here, because you can't understand Kalam until you know logic really well. Knowing logic really well doesn't mean that you can read a matan. Knowing logic well means that you gain the skill of taking an argument and organizing it. And so as we're doing this, we won't be just rereading the matan, we'll be applying it. We'll be using the patterns of reasoning. We'll learn about formal logic, and we're going to add in elements to logic. And the thing that we're going to add to this, I have this in greater detail further down in the page, but the thing that we're going to add to this is scientific reasoning. So classical logic it the problem the problem with classical logic, or the problem in the modern world, is how do you fit scientific reasoning into it? Because scientific reasoning is not a syllogism, and scientific reasoning is really important. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to fit scientific reasoning into ideology. And you need that because if you want to connect Kalam to modern science, you have to understand the epistemology of scientific reasoning. And it's not what many people say. Most people, they say that science doesn't give you certainty. They study the philosophy of science, all of that. It's not the wrong approach. There's a way to fit it in, and inshallah, I'll be showing you that as we go through Isagoji. The next thing we'll be doing is Asiruddin al-Abhari. He lived in the 600s. Um, he also has another book called Hidayatul Hikmah. Hidayatul Hikmah was studied everywhere, all over the world, in the Indian subcontinent. Maulana Thanvi studied it. He taught it. There was it was part of Dars Nizami curriculum. Sadruddin al-Shirazi had a commentary on it, Shi'i, but the Sunnis studied it too. They studied his commentary, and there's super commentaries on it. It's a really important book. Nobody studies it anymore in the Indian subcontinent. What is Hidayatul Hikmah? Hikmah is falsafa. Hikmah is falsafa. So the reason why it's important to study falsafa is not philosophy. Falsafa is Ibn Sina. Ibn Sina is falsafa. So because Kalam 2.0 is talking to Ibn Sina. And so in order to understand what Kalam 2.0 is doing, you have to understand what Ibn Sina is doing. But now, what do? We study Kalam. We don't study Ibn Sina. And then we take the Kalam that's talking to Ibn Sina and we try to make it talk to the modern world, but it's not talking to the modern world. So before you can apply Kalam to the modern world, you have to understand Kalam 2.0 properly. In order to understand it properly, you have to understand who it's talking to. And that's why after we do Isagoji, we do Hidayatul Hikmah. Hidayatul Hikmah, so what is falsafa? Falsafa is it is the attempt to learn everything using the mind alone, the reality of things using the mind alone. And it has a particular flavor, Avicennan flavor. It talks about, there's the Umur Amma in the beginning. There's a brief introduction to that. It's there in Hidayatul Hikmah. There's an analysis of the world in terms of bodies and accidents. You understand where that comes from, why they're talking about, why they're looking at it in this way anyway. You learn about why the Falasifa said the world is eternal. And that sets the scene for you to study Kalam. Because it's only after you do Hidayatul Hikmah that you can understand Kalam. If you understand logic and you understand falsafa, now you can understand what Kalam is doing. But when we do Hidayatul Hikmah, in addition to doing Hidayatul Hikmah, we'll also look at how modern science has changed the way that we look at the universe. So we'll learn the way the mutakallimūn looked at it, and we learn how modern science looks at it. And once you once you do logic and you understand scientific reasoning and how it fits into logic, and then you do Hidayat al-Hikmah and you understand how modern science, how it looks at the world and how it's different, now you can study Kalam. And we're going to do a very introductory book called al-Barahin by Muhammad ibn Yusuf al-Sanusi. And it's the key arguments in logical form. And we're going to look at the logical structure of it, and we're going to apply it to we're going to take what we did in logic and falsafa and apply it, and then reorient it towards modern science. And when you do that, then you will understand how to use Kalam to speak to the modern world. So that's the focus of the first year. Now, when as we're going through this, as we go through the entire Kalam curriculum, we're not going to do polemics. Kalam today, there's a problem because what happens is that Muslims study Kalam and they start arguing with each other. And they start argue, and the reason why they study Kalam is to refute a Muslim opponent. And that Muslim opponent could be a mubtadi', he could be a person of bid'ah, uh, or it could be like it's not a person of bid'ah. So Ash'ari and Maturidis, it's not there's no bid'ah, they're both Ahl Sunnah. But somebody says that my madhab is I'm Ash'ari, or my madhab is I'm Maturidi. My madhab is Kalam is not about madhab. If you and the goal of Kalam is not to defend a madhab. The goal of Kalam is to learn how to think. So and polemics destroys Kalam. What do we want to do? We want to show that Islam is true. So our opponents are the atheists and the non-Muslims, not the people of bid'ah. That's not what we're doing. That's really easy. People have done it. But what we want to do in Kalam 3.0, we want to learn how to show the truth of Islam. So whenever there's issues of disagreement between the Ash'aris and Maturidis or the Atharis, we'll talk about the Athari school as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, here's a position, and here's what the various schools say. Maybe I'll give some reasoning, and then we're not going to go any more deep into it. And so whichever school you come from, or you want to follow, you can you can do what you want. Okay? You can do what you want. As for me, I don't on issues of Kalam, there's no taqleed. There's no taqleed. You have to, Kalam is about using your mind and seeing what's true. And the moment you fall into taqleed, Kalam dies. Because it becomes but people, they have very strong group identities. So I'm not going to, so if somebody comes with a group identity, then they're welcome. I'm not going to ruffle any feathers. Salafis are welcome, non-Salafis are welcome, Shi'is are welcome, if you want to come. And it should be like that because Sadruddin al-Shirazi was a Shi'i, and the Muslims studied what he wrote, and the Shi'is, they studied Taftāzānī, they studied Jurjani, and we had an academic atmosphere. So I'm a Sunni, right? But what I'm doing here is we're not doing polemics. So and we have to come out of that mindset. So our goal, our opponent is the non-Muslims, and it's not other Muslims. And as for like other Muslims, you can go learn it somewhere else, and there's lots of people who are teaching it, and it's not a problem. But how do you take Kalam and show the truth of Islam to a non-Muslim? That's what I want to show you. So when we go through al-Barahin on all issues of disagreement between Ash'aris and Maturidis, I'm going to mention them. So if you have a particular leaning, I'm not trying to convert anybody. Right. So you can come and you can feel safe. But the point here is to learn the terms, to learn the arguments, and to learn their application. So these are the three things that we'll be doing, and it has to go in this order. You have to do logic, you have to do falsafa, and then you do kalam. And these are all beginner books. They're just a mutun. They're not complicated hawashi or anything. But what will happen is that when you do it, you will gain a good solid foundation in Kalam and its application. And it'll be really solid because you'll really understand what all the terms are, what all the arguments are, where they came from, and how to use them. And then what we're going to do is we're also going to read The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins, and we're going to read it in light of what we've learned and apply what we've learned to all of the issues that he mentions that are related to what we see. And I think that's really important because this is popular atheism. Then we're going to do the Jawharat al-Tawheed. And the goal here is to get a map of Kalam 2.0. What are the key issues? So with al-Barahin, it's just the main arguments. With with the Jawhara, you see the whole thing. You see all of the Kalam issues. We're going to quickly go through them. You gain a high level map, and then we're going to look at Kalam 3.0. Kalam 3.0, we're not going to be able to go through the whole book in the first year. We're just going to look at the top level arguments, and it'll show you how to take Kalam 2.0 and what exactly needs to change and why. And you'll see that nothing really has changed. It's just a reorientation. And that's the first year. And so what you learn in the first year is you learn how to connect Kalam to the modern world. And you have a good grounding in the science of Kalam, in the key terms, in the key arguments, where it came from and how to apply it. And then the second year we do Sharh al-Aqaid. And so the first year you don't need to know any Arabic. So first year, if somebody comes, the Arabic is weak, you can still actually benefit from the first year. I will be explaining Arabic texts, but they'll all be translated because they're beginning level mutun. The second year, I'm not going to translate Sharh al-Aqaid. So you actually have to grapple with the Arabic text. We're going to read Sharh al-Aqaid. We're going to read the Kalam Cosmological Argument by William Lane Craig. There's a couple of episodes that are coming out on God's cosmos. You can get that'll give you an idea of the kinds of things that you'll be able to do. So we can I hope to show you exactly where William Lane Craig goes wrong and why, and how to make the Kalam argument correctly in the modern age in light of everything. So he hits. There's set theory, there's the Big Bang, there's scientific reasoning, all of those things, they come up. And so when we do this, you understand how to take the most important Kalam argument and how to bring it into the modern world, and you're connected. Stephen Meyer has a book called Return of the God Hypothesis. It's really important, and we'll be looking at that as well. So this is like a deeper level scientific analysis. And in the second year, we look at evolution in detail, all of the issues of science, and we're going to study all of Kalam 3.0 in detail. So that's your second year of study. And in the third year, we're going to look at we're going to do Taftāzānī. So I was actually going to call Kalam 3.0 I was thinking of calling it Taftāzānī Institute. If there's one scholar who's really important in all of this, it's Taftāzānī. And so we'll be doing Tahdhīb al-Mantiq and Tahdhīb al-Kalām by him. These are advanced, intermediate advanced level books. If you understand these two books, you can read Mawaqif, you can read Maqasid, you can read the high level books, and we'll be applying them to we'll inshallah learn symbolic logic, modal logic, ontological arguments, and the miracle of theism. This is the most important philosophical defense of atheism a couple of decades ago. And with these issues in these advanced books, we'll be well placed to look at this. Basically, in the third year, we'll be looking at things like what is existence, what exactly is contingency, what is the concept in the mind, how does it relate to reality. So there's a lot more philosophical issues in the third year, and that is and it's applied to miracle of theism. He talks about Kant, he talks about Hume, he talks about all of the everything related to atheism, and so we'll apply it to that, and we'll also look at the philosophy of religion. The philosophy of religion is an important field because you can actually make an argument for the truth of Islam in the philosophy of religion. You can argue whatever you want, and they'll listen to you. And it's a field that's currently dominated by Christians, and Muslims need to enter it. And I hope to demonstrate that. And this is basically a three-year course plan. And so this is what I would like to take you through. So if you have any questions, I can take them. Does that make sense? Sheikh Ahmed, ahlan wa sahlan, welcome. Thank you for registering. So if you guys are interested, then please register, and we'll take it from there, inshallah. What level of Arabic is required? For the first year, you don't need much Arabic, because for the first year there'll be a matan, and the translation will be provided. And even if you don't understand the Arabic, you'll understand what's being taught. But in the second year onwards, you'll need Arabic. Sister Sadia, you said that I don't think I'm at the level of this type of understanding just yet. So which particular area of understanding, what are some of the things that you felt were beyond your level? Sister Amina. So Sister Amina said, I'm not sure I can commit to 3 years. You don't need to commit to 3 years. So it's just year by year. So right now it's just for the first year. Second year we'll see how many of you are alive. Then I will decide. But I have the map for you. So I would like to do all 3 years. But right now the commitment would just be for the first year. 3 years of Dars Nizami cuts it. Cuts it. You have it, inshallah. Sadia says that why Islam is true more to my understanding. That's totally understandable. This is an advanced course. It's not for the masses, but it's for somebody who wants to understand how to use the Kalam tradition to do why Islam is true. And so it's not necessary. It's not required. So Sadia, we do have like teacher training for why Islam is true. That does not require any of this. I'll be doing that after Ramadan, so maybe you can join that. Will there be tests? There will be. I haven't. There will be assignments. There will be applications. There will be applications, and you'll get feedback on them. And you can, inshallah, help me make the tests. Comment. But I don't want to. I don't want to. I won't. It won't be. It'll be 4 hours a week, and then some homework. But it's not going to be like overwhelming. Yeah. So the Sheikh Idris says, yeah, there's financial aid available. So anybody who's planning on teaching, there's financial aid available. So you should apply. And I don't expect anybody to go broke, and times are hard. And so yeah, so there's